Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sports, Cigars, and Coffee. I'm your host, Coach Dave, and we're going to be recapping NFL this past weekend, NCAA football, and we're just going to be talking a little bit. Football now is going to be, we're hitting that point now in both college and the NFL where it's playoff talk now. We're beyond playing Scribinis in college, well, unless you're Florida State and the SEC. We'll get into that later. First, the cigar of the day is AJ Fernandez Nicaragua series. This is a medium to full body. Smooth, um, not overpowering. It's basic, simple, and I like that. I like the basic, simple. There's no complexity to it. I get some earthy, it's sweet, and I get a hint of coffee out of it. So if you're so inclined, uh, the AJ Fernandez, good cigar here. Hard to believe that a week tomorrow is Thanksgiving. Isn't that crazy? It doesn't feel like it since I'm sitting in central Wisconsin here in 60-degree weather. So, um, so let's get started with the NFL Week 10 recap. Nothing really um, out of the ordinary happened this week. The typical Dallas beat a bad team. Dak puts up over 400 yards against the Giants. Everybody says the Cowboys are the best team in the NFL and Dak is the best quarterback in the NFL. But let's keep this in perspective. He doesn't have a signature win. He's the wins that they have, the 6 wins that they have, they are opponents with a record of 15-32. And their 3 losses, their opponents are 16-12, and that 12 is only because they lost to the 2-8 Cardinals. Otherwise, it's the 49ers and the Eagles who beat them. So they got another pad statter this week with the Panthers. Dak will put up probably 350 to 400 yards. Everybody will give him a nice tongue lather on the Monday after the game, and then their schedule really starts. They got the Bills, which I don't know about the Bills, but they're the Cowboys of the AFC, so that's going to be an interesting game on who could out-stupid themselves in the game. They have the Eagles, they have Miami, they have Detroit. So after the Panthers, and they beat the Panthers, and they're 7-3. Oh, and Washington twice, which you don't know. Washington is one of those fence teams that if things break the right way, they can make a playoff push. So it's a division game. One of them is on Thanksgiving, so you don't know with those division games. So the schedule after the Panthers, they're going to be 7-3, and everybody is going to say they're back and yada yada yada. And we'll see when the going gets tough. That's when Dallas shrivels up. That's when they become mentally incompetent. Kind of like the Bills. I mean, what the heck was that? 12 guys on the field for a field goal attempt. And hell, look, I know I've been hard on the Broncos all year. At one point, I dubbed them the worst team in football. I was making fun of Russ Wilson and Sean Payton, but hey, I tip my hat to them. They're not just beating, you know, they're not just beating the Giants and the Panthers. They're beating the Chiefs. They're beating the Bills, who are supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. Who the Bills at this point, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, they're so bipolar. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. They fired Ken Dorsey because they had 12 guys on the field for the field goal, obviously, and Gabe Davis should have caught the pass that led to an interception again. But they're just so wild. I don't understand. Everybody had high hopes for him, but Josh Allen, one game he looks like a world beater in the first half. or the next game he looks pedestrian. I don't know. I don't know. So we'll see what happens to the Bills. I mean, like I said, they have a they have Miami, the Eagles, and Dallas. So there's three games they could lose very easy, and three games they could win very easy. That's what's frustrating with a team like this, who has all the talent in the world, and they just do dumb crap, just like the Cowboys. The Cowboys, when they're in a situational football, they just shrink, they just shrivel up, they go from a grape to a raisin, and uh, that's going to be interesting when the Bills and Cowboys actually do play. Is that going to be a game? Let's see who can outstupid themselves. So I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait for that. CJ Stroud, man, he's definitely wrapped up the offensive rookie of the year. I mean, to do what he's doing, uh, he has the Texans at 5-4, and if the playoffs started today, the Texans are the seventh seed. How about that? Uh, Now I'm biased towards Nick Sirianni. I think the guy, though arrogant, um, but effective coach, and I think he should be in consideration for Coach of the Year. But right now, the winner, hands down, is DeMarco Ryan. Um, he was an ex-Eagle. He was actually the captain for the Chip Kelly era, and Chip Kelly's nickname for him was Mustafa, because everything went through DeMarco. And what he's doing in Texas, you know, I thought it was going to be a year. I thought they're going to get their quarterback, get some guys in free agency, stock up on the draft, get some depth, and then year two, make that push. But man, CJ Stroud, you keep playing like this, you're going to find yourself in the MVP, not just the Offensive Rookie of the Year, but the MVP category. So kudos to the Texans for, you know, not believing the hype that they're the negative hype and just blocking out the noise and going out there and playing good football. Minnesota has won five in a row. As of right now, they're in the playoffs. Um, they are I believe, the uh, sixth seed. No, Dallas is the sixth seed, but right now Minnesota is in the playoffs, and this Josh Dobbs story is amazing. Doesn't surprise me because the guy is a genius. I don't know if you guys know, but he is like a molecular engineer, and the way he processes defense is the way he processes his engineering stuff. Um, so I'm not surprised. But Vikings are playing good ball. I mean, you can't deny that they're not playing good ball, and five in a row after, especially when Kirk Cousins got hurt, everyone thought it was over. So we'll see what the Vikings can do once Josh Dobbs gets comfortable. And that's the thing; he's not even comfortable yet with his teammates. He hasn't have that rhythm. He doesn't have the timing down. He's just making plays, and then the defense is making stops when they have to. And like I said, I've already, talked about them. But how about the Vegas Raiders are now sitting at 5-5, and Antonio Pierce is 3-0 as a coach, and uh, or 2-0. I'm sorry, 2-0 as a coach. 2-0. He beat the two New York teams, the Giants and the Jets. I'm sorry. So they're kind of creeping up in that playoff. And I thought these were the two worst teams in football. Sean Payton's figured out his coaching system. The players are buying into it. And, the Raiders had to get rid of Josh McDaniels, and who should never be a head coach in the NFL again. Heck, I wouldn't even let him be a head coach of a Pee Wee football team at this point. The man, he may know offense. He may know how to devise an offensive scheme. He may know how to drop an offensive play, but he's not a leader. He doesn't know how to interact with men. He doesn't know how to be a coach. Um, so, so he should never be a head coach again. So kudos to the Raiders for, getting into that playoff talk. So like now you're going to start seeing in the games, you're going to be seeing the playoff pictures. The Broncos and Raiders are in the mix. I think they use in the hunt column. They have the division winners, the wild cards, and then the in the hunt. And you're going to see the Broncos and frickin' Raiders in the hunt this weekend. Last week, let's take a look at my picks from last week. The four games that I picked. Um, I had the Saints beating Minnesota 26-24. Uh, Vikings came out with a 27-19 win. Um, I had the Lions defeating the Chargers 27-23, and this was probably one of the best games of the year. It was a back and forth effort. Defense decided not to play. You put an NFL game and a Big 12 game broke out. The Lions won on a last second field goal, 41-38. So the Lions are, they're 7-2 now. Uh, and they're staying in that elite. I thought maybe they'll come back, especially after they got the beat down by the Ravens a few weeks ago, but they haven't. So kudos to them. Jacksonville and San Francisco. This game was a 1 o'clock kickoff in Jacksonville. I thought Jacksonville was going to win this game. Um, but the 49ers came out and just blew them away 34-3. So we'll see if the 49ers are back and if that 3 game losing streak was just a blip on the radar. And then we had the Steelers and the Packers. I had the Steelers winning this one 17-10. And I had, uh, you know, the Steelers actually took this game 23-19. And I'm just going to tell Packer Nation it's time. Sean Clifford needs to be your quarterback. Um, Jordan Love, we're week 10, too inconsistent. Um, some of his throws are good, and then some of his throws are head scratchers. Like the interception that he threw to, so to speak, end the game, you know, are not that not the one to end the game by the goal line, but the first one, um, where the ball was tipped and then it was intercepted by the second guy for the Steelers. That ball needs to be out towards the back line of the end zone. So either it's going to be caught by his receiver or it's going to be incomplete. But it was too short. It was underthrown, and the Steelers got a pick. And then the one at the goal line. I mean, you have to throw the ball. You have no choice. The Steelers played. The Steelers played the sticks, so to speak, where they had like from sideline to sideline, everybody on the goal line. But yeah, you have to throw the ball near the end zone. So I went 2-2 last week. Um, so we'll see. Now this weekend we have some good matchups this weekend. Uh, Kicking off tomorrow on Thursday Night Football, we have the Bengals and Baltimore. I'm taking the Ravens 26-20. Uh, I think the Bengals again. They're too. They look good for a couple weeks, and then they lose a game they should have won. They should have beat Cleveland. They're up, what, 24-9 at one point. Steelers and Browns. That's a sneaky big game. Um, so I am going with the Cleveland to win this game. Two of the best defenses in the league, two of the best defensive players in the league with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. So I'm picking Cleveland in a defensive slugfest, 16-13 in overtime. Say what you will about Pittsburgh. Every game this year they've been outgained offensive yards wise, but there's two reasons why they're 6-3. Number one, in the fourth quarter, Kenny Pickett plays great and he doesn't turn the ball over. And number two, the red zone defense is outstanding. It's in my opinion, it's the best red zone defense in the NFL, where they just don't give up touchdowns and they get turnovers in the red zone. So, but they did have a few injuries at the linebacker position, so we'll see how that how that shakes out through the depth. But I like Cleveland in the defensive struggle, 16-13. We also have the Dolphins and the Raiders. Again, another sneaky game now that's going to be big for the Raiders, because if they could get a win, now they're 6-5 and they move closer on the ladder. But I think the Dolphins have too much offensive firepower. I know Max Crosby He's in the mix for Defensive Player of the Year. I know he's going to wreak havoc on the offensive line for Miami, but I think Miami has too much firepower, and they come out with a 36-16 win. Sunday night, again, another sneaky big game. Like these games that we weren't think were going to be big games in September are now big games in November. The Vikings in Denver Broncos on Sunday Night Football. The Vikings travel to Denver. I like the Vikings to take this one 28-20 to to win their six in a row and to solidify their playoff position. But Denver needs this game again to climb that ladder in the playoffs. They still have I think they have the Raiders and Chargers left. They played the Chiefs twice. So another big game for Denver. And then Monday we have the big one in Kansas City. The Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Now, I don't give predictions for Eagle games, but I'm expecting a game like the Super Bowl. Maybe less scoring because of both defenses. Even though the Eagles give up yards, they typically don't give up points unless it's Washington and Sam Howell. They make him look like Y.A. Tittle, and they make Tua look like Cliff Stout. Explain that one to me. But I'm expecting a game kind of like last year. And then this starts the Eagles' run. These next 5 weeks, they could pretty much clinch the division and clinch home field before Christmas. If they have the Chiefs, the Bills, San Fran, Dallas, and Seattle. You get through that streak, you just beat the NFC teams. You beat the NFC teams, and you're wrapping up home field advantage in the division before you play the Giants, Cardinals, Giants, which is nice to have those three teams at the end of the year. So if you do have a little hiccup, if you do go 3-2 in this stretch, or 2-3, you got those. You got two of the worst football teams the last 3 games. So that's a nice. The schedule worked out nice. Whereas Dallas, it's different. They go from the Giants, Panthers, and then they got to go, Washington, Detroit, Miami, Buffalo, Eagles. So that's going to be I'm excited for that game. I love watching I love watching the Eagles offense just operate. I love watching Andy Reid coached team play. So this is going to be nice. But the Chiefs defense this year is lights out. Spags has them playing lights out, where they're actually carrying the football team this year. So it's going to be an interesting matchup Monday night in Kansas City. This week's buys are the Falcons, the Saints, the Patriots, and the Colts. But then again, aren't the Patriots on a bye week every week? And this week, it's my MVP top 5. I got 2 of 5. Jalen Hurts 4, Pat Mahomes 3, Lamar Jackson 2, and I still have AJ Brown number 1 because he is, Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, but without AJ Brown, the Eagles don't beat. They don't beat Washington twice. They don't beat. They don't beat Dallas. They don't beat some of these games that they have. Uh, they're not winning without him, and that's what I do. Take the player off the field. Yes, take AJ Brown off the field. The Eagles still have a good football team. They're probably still a playoff team, but he's elevating them from just a playoff team to a Super Bowl contender. And when you have a player who does that, no matter what position they're on or what position they play, that's my MVP. Just like in baseball, what would you do if you took Aaron Judge off the Yankees compared to taking Ohtani off the Angels? Well, the Angels without Ohtani still stink. The Yankees without Judge, we know, stink. You know. All right, so let's talk about the NCAA Week 11 recap. And Again, James Franklin and Penn State come up short in a big spot. Defense certainly played well enough to win. When you're playing Michigan and you hold them to 17 points through 3.5 quarters, and you're playing Ohio State and you hold them to 13 points through 3.5 quarters, you should win those games. But in those two games, the offense disappeared. They couldn't do anything, and then the 2 point conversions from Franklin were just ridiculous. Uh, when it's 14-3 and you score a touchdown to make it 14-9, you kick the extra point with 30 seconds to go before halftime. 14-10, go in the locker room at 14-10. Uh, then Yeah, and then going for it at the 4 minute mark at your own 30-yard line. It wasn't even like it was 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. It was like 4th and 7, incomplete pass. Next play, Michigan. It's 17-9 at that point. Michigan first play scores 24-9, game over. But with about 150 left or so, maybe 140, Penn State scored to make it 24-15, kick the extra point. It's 24-16. You still have 2 timeouts. You're around the 2 minute mark. You can still kick it deep, call your timeouts, and get the ball back with about 40 seconds left. Nope. Franklin goes for 2, misses, and virtually ends the game right there. Sunday, Mike Yurich, the offensive coordinator for Penn State, was fired. So James Franklin, in his 10th year, is going to be looking for a 6th offensive coordinator. Oregon took down USC 36-27. Missouri they wiped the floor with Tennessee 36-7. Washington 35, Utah 28. Washington just keeps winning. Florida State 27, Miami was 20. And Alabama's just lurking in the grassy knoll. I'm picking them. They're gonna find a way into playoffs. And they're just like Rasputin. You can't kill them. So these Auburn and Georgia, put them away. Put them away, because if you don't, they're going to be holding the crystal football at the end of the year. Uh, and then Texas A&M fired Jimbo Fisher with the largest buyout of any contract, $76 million buyout. So Jimbo Fisher was told, here's $76 million to not be our coach. So over the next, I believe, 8 years, he's going to be collecting $76 million. So whoever agreed to that contract at the administration of Texas A&M should be fired immediately. What a horrible contract for the school. So now you're going to be paying Jimbo $76 million for the next 8-10 years. And then you're going to be paying a new coach probably $20-25 million for the next 5 years. So they're going to be on the hook of paying over $100 million for coaches. One is their current coach, will be their current coach, and the other is fired. Just makes the Mets Bobby Bonilla day nothing. So Texas A&M is going to be looking for a new coach. And then this week we have, Penn State's playing Rutgers in their home finale, senior day for Penn State. They'll beat Rutgers, then they'll beat Michigan State. They'll have a 10-2 record. But it just seems empty. That 10-2 record seems empty. So we have a pretty good one out there in Corvallis. Washington is traveling to Oregon State. We have the Battle of Kansas and Kansas State this weekend. Georgia and Tennessee. It'll be interesting to see how Tennessee bounces back after getting wiped out by Missouri. And then we have the SEC Invitational. Alabama's playing Chattanooga. Ole Miss is playing University of Louisiana Monroe. No, not Monroe Ficus. The University of Louisiana Monroe. LSU is playing the ever hard Georgia State. Arkansas is playing Florida International. Texas A&M is playing the ever powerhouse Abilene Christian. And Auburn is playing New Mexico State, and like I said, Arkansas is playing Florida International. This has to stop. The NCAA has to stop this. These Now you have Georgia playing Tennessee, and then you got Alabama playing Chattanooga. You got Washington playing Oregon State. You got Alabama playing Chattanooga. That is the most ridiculous thing, and the SEC gets away with it. When you call them out on it, they don't do anything. And I believe all non-conference games have to be done by October 15th. October 15th, all non-conference games need to be done. The fact that the NCAA and the SEC allow Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, Texas A&M, Auburn, and Arkansas to get away with this. But Florida State's not absolved either. They're playing the powerhouse, Northern Alabama. The scheduling is stupid. There needs to be a change in that scheduling model. But the presidents and the athletic directors and the coaches don't want to play two hard non-conference games. They'll play one and then they'll play three patsies. But I don't know. And that's actually going to change. It's going to be worse. It's going to be worse with the 12-team playoff because these teams who are the fringe teams like Missouri, Penn State, Ole Miss, then they're going to be getting, and Penn State's already doing it with Delaware and UMass. So, yeah, if you want to be in the playoffs, you got to get the SEC and Florida State scheduling model. That's the only way you're going to get in. It's sad, but it's true. So my Heisman hasn't changed. It's still Marvin Harrison Jr. In my opinion, he's the best player in college football. He is carrying Ohio State, literally carrying them by himself. Without him, he makes an average quarterback and an average offense better. So without him, they're nothing. They probably have 2 losses. He is the reason why they're winning. So he is, in my opinion, the best player in college. You can't look at the stats of other receivers or you can't look at the stats. You have to look at it in context. Um, to me, his route running is fluid. It's effortless. It's efficient. He's got hands. He can make every catch. He can make the 50-50 ball. He could dot the I on the sidelines. He just makes he could go down and pick one off the ground. So yeah, he is the best player in college football. And uh, we're gonna talk now. We're gonna go into our Week 10 NFL business tier. This week, we're gonna go bottom to top. So this week, our unpaid interns are the Giants, the Bears, the Panthers, Cardinals, and Patriots. The office hourly employees are the Packers, the Falcons, Tampa Bay, the Rams, and the Titans. Our team leaders are the Saints, the Bills, the Jets, the Chargers, the Broncos, and Raiders. Who would have thought that the Broncos and Raiders will be making their way up the ladder while the Packers and Patriots are at the bottom of the corporate ladder? Our regional managers are Washington and Indianapolis. And the only reason why Indianapolis is hanging around is because of the division they're in. The Jags, even though I think they're the best team, got blown out. And then you have, Houston, the Titans in there. So our regional assistant vice presidents, we have the Bengals and the Texans. And at the beginning of the year, who thought that the Texans on November 15th would be at the same corporate ladder as the Cincinnati Bengals? Our regional vice presidents, we have the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Browns. Our chief financial officers, we have Dallas, Seattle, Miami, and Jacksonville. Our chief operating officers, we have the 49ers, the Lions, and the Ravens. And the CEOs, we have the Eagles and the Chiefs, who I still feel are the 2 best teams in the NFL overall. And I feel that really, I think the only competition for the Eagles in the NFC is the 49ers in Detroit. And I think the only competition for Kansas City in the AFC is the Ravens. So we'll see how that shakes out. I got my NCAA weekly updated poll. I have Michigan 1, Georgia 2, Florida State 3, Ohio State 4, Washington 5, Oregon 6, Texas 7, Alabama 8, Oregon State 9, and Louisville 10, even though they lost to Pitt. They didn't just lose to Pitt, they got blown out by Pitt. But they're number 10 now. And then my next two looking in is Missouri and Penn State. Also, want to say good luck on Friday night in the first round of the state high school football Pennsylvania playoffs to the Dunmore Bucks. Go ahead and get that win because remember, once a buck, always a buck. I hope they're wearing my favorite uniform combo, the white jerseys with the red, crimson red pants. Uh, that's my favorite uniform combo, so I hope to see that. Um, on social media when I'm following the game. And share, comment, like, keep the conversation going, spread the word. Uh, now the NFL is cooking. Um, we have baseball hot stove is going to be cooking. Who's going to be the first free agent to sign? What big deal trade is going to happen? The NBA is doing their stupid in-season tournament, which I've already addressed it. I'm not even going to acknowledge that that gimmick exists. And college basketball is starting up, and now once we get deeper into November and December, we'll start seeing conference games, and these cupcake games will be past us, and we're going to start seeing, conference games and tougher out of conference. Last night, Kansas beat Kentucky last night. So yeah, once that gets once college basketball gets in full swing, that's going to be fun. And with that being said, arrivederci.